Hello, everybody, and welcome to our presentation on human services provision. I am Josh. I'll be your introducer as well as fielder.
My name's Tala Jones, and I'll be the summarizer.
My name's Crystal Garcia, and I will be the illustrator throughout this presentation.
And my name's Emily, and I'll be the researcher throughout this presentation.
There are all our names. So as quoted by Cooper, applied behavior analysis, also commonly known as ABA, is science devoted to understanding and improving human behavior. The Behavior Analysis Certification Board, also known as the BACB, was created to meet credentialing needs for professionals and relevant stakeholders while protecting ABA consumers by establishing, distributing, and managing professional standards. The BACB helps facilitate ethical decisions and guides professional activities of behavior analysis. It provides means for behavior analysis to evaluate their own behavior and for others to access whether a behavior analysis has violated their ethical obligations. Ethical compliance codes for behavior analysis was created in 2014, but started being enforced on January 1st, 2016, with a change in name to Ethical Code for Behavior Analysis. The BACB's certificate program accreditor, the National Commission for Certified Agencies, or NCCA, requires programs to regularly review certification requirements for possible revisions, especially when there are changes in the profession, given the rapid changes in the applied behavior analysis professions. The BACP initiates a project to revise the Professional and Ethical Compliance Code, also known as the PECC, in 2018. With primary tasks beginning earliest as 2019. The project aimed to produce a more efficient and reliable code, facilitate code enforcement, and articulate its guiding principles, all with an eye towards improving consumer protection. Principles can help behavior analysis select interventions, targets, strategies, behavior analysis have the luxury of accessing multiple lists of evidence-based practices for individuals with autism spectrum disorder. Principles can help practitioners more successfully match evidence-based practices to specifically teaching opportunities. Here are some violations of the code, or what you can do if you see violations within the company you're working at. So if you witness a violation, the steps you can take are bringing it up to a person directly, writing an email to a supervisor or somebody higher up, go to the person's supervisor or go up to the person and confront them, or just report them to the board if it's major or severe enough. Violations can impact clients negatively, be harmful or dangerous, and may not be in their best interest.
So on this slide, we will be talking about the most frequent violations in 2016 to 2017. So this illustration represents the ethical violations that happened most frequently: improper, inadequate supervision or delegation, correlations to codes 5.0, behavior analysts as supervisors, and 10.05, compliance with BACB supervision and coursework standards. So 67 reports were made, and only 25 of those reports were investigated. An example of this could be your supervising BCBA giving a supervisee an assessment to do on their own with no oversight. Failure to report or respond to the BACB correlates to code 10.02 regarding timely responding, reporting, and updating information provided to the BACB. So 67 reports were made and only 29 of those were investigated. So an example of this would be a BCBA not updating their continuing education credits, also known as CEUs, in order to continue being licensed. Professionalism and integrity correlates to codes 1.04 integrity and 1.05 professional and scientific relationships. 7.01 promoting an ethical culture and 7.02 ethical violations by others and risks of harm. So 65 of these violations were reported and 34 of them were investigated. An example of this could be crossing boundaries with staff members. So dating someone that you're supervising would be an example of crossing those boundaries.
So the first topic we would like to touch base on is professional boundaries when collaborating with others.
In our
How-
field, we interact with clients, families, staff members, other professionals, and school staff. Having professional boundaries in place can help us maintain professional relationships needed to provide adequate services to the clients we serve. When working with clients, it's important as providers to be aware of our caseload and the availability we have in order to provide the best service possible. When we put too much on our plate, such as taking on too many clients, we might not be able to create treatment plans that can create meaningful outcomes or provide adequate supervision to those providing direct services. This can lead to issues with treatment fidelity, new behaviors, or skills that may be missed due to limited availability from the BCBA. This relates to code 3.01, responsibility of clients, which states that behavior analysts act in the best interest of clients, taking appropriate steps to support clients' rights, maximize benefits, and do no harm. We are responsible for ensuring that we are providing ethical and effective treatment to clients. And while we might not want to say no to taking on another client, if we're unable to provide effective treatment, then it's ethically appropriate to defer the client to another BCBA that has the availability. When accepting clients, we also need to be aware of our scope of competence as discussed in code 3.03, as well as codes 1.05 and 1.06. If a client requires services outside of our area of expertise, such as self-injurious behaviors, then it's the behavior analyst's responsibility to transfer the client to a BCBA with experience in those behaviors. Accepting a client outside of the BCBA's scope of competence could prevent providing effective treatment and potentially cause harm to the client and relevant parties involved. Behavior analysts are also responsible to uphold professional boundaries when working and providing supervision to RBTs. As a supervisor, our ethical behavior serves as a model to RBTs and can affect how they continue to represent themselves in the field. One important element listed in the code is 4.01, compliance with supervision requirements. This code states that as behavior analysts are knowledgeable about and comply with all applicable supervision requirements. This means following the percentage of required supervision each month, as well as ensuring the structure of supervision is appropriate, as in setting. By not providing adequate supervision, issues with treatment fidelity arise, and in turn, the client isn't receiving effective treatment. Supervision is a great tool to see how the programs are being implemented, how the client is responding, as well as to address any concerns and make modifications. Without frequent supervision, these variables can be easily missed, stalling client progress. Another consideration is taking on supervisees that want to complete fieldwork hours to become a BCBA. Before accepting a trainee, one should be sure that they're competent in the area of focus, such as the task list, and that they have the availability in regards to their current caseload or other trainees that they already may be supervising. Supervisors need to consider the time commitment in order to provide quality supervision. Bailey and Birch highlighted that supervision volume should be at a level at which the trainee is able to adequately improve their skills as well as the supervision provided. Behavior analysts taking on a volume of supervisory activities beyond their ability to be effective may result in the trainee's failure to develop these skills and ending up into developing problematic skills that could be harmful in the future when they become a BCBA. If we don't have the availability to take on a trainee or the competence in a specific area, then it's our responsibility to defer the trainee to another supervisor who is capable. By upholding this boundary and acknowledging our limitations, we can ensure that RBTs and future behavior analysts are getting the quality supervision needed to grow their skills.
This illustration identifies important considerations for monitoring the ethical practices of the organization, including the delivery of supervision. So the first section of this illustration right here covers ethical practices an organization should be responsible for, such as mission-driven services and a plan for initial and ongoing staff training, including training on ethics. The second section covers qualities in our field differences. And then the final section covers supervisors' responsibility in regards to providing adequate supervision to RBTs and trainees studying to become behavior analysts. These goals can be used when initially beginning to provide services and then continuously monitored to ensure ethical practices are being followed within the organization.
In the field of behavior analysis, we often collaborate with other professionals, including BCBAs, professionals from other disciplines, and school staff. Such collaboration can involve multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary work where professionals from different disciplines work together to identify goals, assess progress, and even co-treat. Collaboration with other professionals can help the BCBA receive a better understanding of treatment of other disorders that are outside of their scope of competence. Scope of competence refers to the range of professional activities of the individual practitioner that are performed at a level that is deemed proficient. Code 105 discusses practicing within the scope of competence, meaning that they only practice in areas that they have training in and engage in professional activities in new areas only after appropriate training, consultation, or co-treatment from other professionals. As we discussed earlier, when a BCBA receives a case outside of their scope of competence, it's best to refer it to another BCBA or provider that has specific training in that area. For example, a speech therapist may be able to provide expertise regarding a client with swallowing disorders that a BCBA may be unfamiliar with, or an occupational therapist may be consulted for assistance in daily living tasks. It's important to uphold professional boundaries when consulting with other professionals to avoid misunderstandings between disciplines. When a misunderstanding and inability or lack of communication between disciplines occur, it may inhibit the ability to develop interventions that can be meaningful for the client. To avoid these issues in collaboration, BCBAs actively listen and engage in dialogues with others to try to increase their understanding of the reasons for the recommendation being made and maintaining an openness to recommendations suggested by others.
Social media opens up opportunities to collaborate with other professionals, to share information and resources that may be beneficial to clients. Many sites are available now, such as Facebook, with groups for those in the behavior analysis field to interact with one another. In these groups, it's easy to simply post a question and quickly receive multiple responses that have been inaccessible in person. While having others to collaborate with can be helpful, behavior analysts and other professionals in the field should be cautious when posting information related to clients or seeking recommendations online. Code 510 discusses behavior analysts' responsibility to clients' privacy and confidentiality, stating that they do not post information or digital content of clients on personal social media accounts. This should also apply to posting about clients in social media groups, venting about clients, or seeking treatment recommendations. Even if identifying information about the client is removed, there is a possibility that a family member of the client or a coworker may see the post in turn, damaging the relationship with client and or your company. Scope of competence should also be considered when discussing treatment options on social media, as we don't know the person's background or expertise that is recommending the intervention. If someone who is inexperienced recommends or tries to implement an intervention without prior research or training, it could be done incorrectly, causing more harm to the client. It should also be mentioned that we don't know what has been attempted or other factors that may impede an intervention. It's recommended to refrain from using social media and rely on literature to obtain evidence-based treatment information. Another recommendation when responding in forums is to provide relevant articles, allowing the BCBA to conduct their own research and determine whether the intervention is appropriate for the client. When working with families and other professionals, behavior analysts should be aware of their own biases, cultural factors that might affect how they provide services. According to Betancourt et al., ignored or unidentified cultural variables may become barriers to the delivery of effective treatment, such as how readily a client accepts diagnosis, client's preferences for specific targets, and the types of treatments a client seeks out. Some cultures may not believe in Western practices or may not see the need to address certain behaviors, causing resistance when recommending interventions. Code 107 states the importance of behavior analysts acquiring knowledge related to cultural diversity and evaluating their own biases to address the needs of individuals with diverse backgrounds. By becoming aware of how our culture impacts our behavior, we can better identify cultural variables that affect others. One method to provide culturally competent care is by providing multiple treatment options to review with the family to understand what they may or may not be comfortable with. BCBAs can also conduct a cultural assessment to better understand the client's background to prevent any potential barriers to treatment. Another factor that affects cultural competence is the lack of training and cultural diversity in the coursework requirements for behavior analysts. A study conducted by Bellew et al. Found that a majority of respondents reported that training on working with individuals from diverse backgrounds is very or extremely important, even though they had little or no training in the area. While many did not have formal training in the area, they felt comfortable and skilled working with diverse backgrounds due to experience. Because experience can vary between individuals, the need for formal training and culturally competent care is critically needed in order to best identify and incorporate cultural variables.
This illustration depicts a self-reflection created by Fisher-Bone et al. In 2015 to provide a framework for the practice of cultural humility within the field of social work. These questions can help us as providers identify any possible biases or misunderstandings they may have in order to develop culturally humble practices. This critical self-reflection also addresses topics that we may not consider when working with clients from diverse backgrounds that are important to be aware of to provide effective services.
Next, we will talk about multiple relationships. When talking about multiple relationships, we must first ask what is a multiple relationship and how do they develop? Gottlieb states that dual relationships consist of an individual partaking in two roles at the same time. In addition, in a professional relationship, this can look like many different things. For teachers, it could be a student and a son, or in any professional manner, there's another relationship in place, such as a family, friend, doctor, therapist, etc. Although some may find multiple relationships healthy and positive, the subject is often polarizing and can lead to many unethical codes or unethical choices. First, let's talk about some of the pros that go into multiple relationships.
One thing about multiple relationships is they're often unavoidable. The main reason for putting this in pros, depending on the location of where social workers, multiple relationships cannot be stopped and oftentimes need to be encouraged in order for one to live. Imagine going to buy groceries at a local store and the cashier or manager is the client's parent. Buying a car and the car dealer is a client's brother. All of these relationships are things that cannot be avoided unless we go above and beyond to either shelter ourselves or limit ourselves in a manner that truly becomes inconvenient and unlivable for an individual. Another pro is the stronger relationship built between a client and a provider There's no more trust that can come from a friend or a family member, and with more trust comes the ability to be truthful and upfront about certain situations. If a parent doesn't think something is working, they may be more inclined to talk to a close friend before directly confronting a provider. Furthermore, for one's own health and social life, it's beneficial to gain new friends and meet new people. All of these build a strong rapport with one another and make services feel less like work and more inviting. However, there's a fine line where multiple relationships can turn into coercive relationships, turning a friendship into taking advantage for one's own benefit. It should be a great thing to have strong and stable relationships with clients, but too far can cause ethical issues and problems. Multiple relationships tend to lead to a conflict of interest. This is where one duty results in a disregard for another. With this, a person can feel inclined to engage in major unethical decisions. A huge gift or an invite to an amazing event may seem great at first, but when the expectation is to receive something in return, it may result into being let down or ultimately the relationship ending or being damaged. The sexual relationship should also be avoided in all situations professionally, and with multiple relationships, this reality may be harder to avoid or more likely to develop. An invitation to go to a bar is a great way to get closer to friends, but professionally, it's crossing a boundary and could result in poor decisions and ethics broken. With a summary of both pros and cons of multiple relationships, it's important to see what the ethics codes say.
Ethics Code 111, titled Multiple Relationships, explicitly states that multiple relationships may cause a conflict of interest that is given in the example stated by Tala. Going even further back with the pros, if there are multiple relationships, this needs to be discussed and solved through strict boundaries or termination of services. In the examples given above, if they are unavoidable, documentations need to be made throughout, and if services are being compromised, the relationship or services need to be ended. Furthermore, Code 113, titled Coercive and Exploitative Relationships, states that one cannot abuse power or authority by exploiting or manipulating the client. Power levels will be discussed by Crystal with an example shown later, but ultimately relationships should not be taken advantage of for one's personal gain. Continuing with Code 114, titled Romantic and Sexual Relationships, explicitly romantic relationships of any kind with clients, families, stakeholders, trainees, and supervisees are prohibited due to conflict of interest. This also applies to former clients with a time limit of 2 years after services have stopped. In addition, supervisees or trainees, after documentation of professional relationships has ended, or supervisees or trainees cannot not accept these roles if there has been a past romantic relationship or 6 months after the relationship has ended. This is a code that cannot be broken or interpreted in any other manner and therefore should be followed as such. Now that we have seen what exactly the ethics codes state, let's take a dive into specific research information. First off, Reamer explains the importance of separating boundary violation and crossing of boundaries. When a relationship is manipulative, deceptive, and exploitative, this relationship needs to end, and this is a boundary violation. On the other hand, boundary crossings are inherently not harmful, but still may be harmful. A non-harmful example is sharing personal information to relate to clients or give clients comfort. This may be seen as building trust or gaining friendships. These are innocent ways of building rapport and may cross into multiple relationships, but once again, a harmful example consists of making the client feel uncomfortable or causing the client to feel bad and need help. In this example, the relationship has turned into a problem.
In this illustration, it shows the 3 dimensions used to process ethical decision-making. So power relates to the power the provider has over the client in relation to the teacher to a student, which versus a teacher to a parent. Duration is the amount of time spent with each other. Again, the more time spent with a client, the stronger the relationship becomes and the more likely that an ethical boundary will be crossed. In relation to each other, power increases as the duration of the time spent with the client also increases. The final dimension is termination. This refers to if there is a clear end to the relationship, or rather the relationship is expected to never fully come to an end. This makes it difficult in a multiple relationship. It is clear that an end of the school year for most of our relationships with our teachers end, but what if a teacher is a close friend? The relationship is expected not to end, and therefore the power and time increases and leads to boundaries and borders being crossed. As mentioned by Emily and the codes, this one should not be taken advantage of, should be taken advantage of, and their power over a client or a stakeholder. Next, we are going to look at this illustration. Notice that the further your relationship goes to the right, the more restrictions and boundaries need to be set. If a relationship holds too much power over someone whose time is spent significantly with that relationship has no clear ending. Professionally, it needs to be discontinued. If the relationship falls into the mid-range for most, but there's something leading to inability to complete your duties as a whole, the relationship needs to be terminated. If the relationship is unavoidable and there's no effort to get a consultation, the services need to end. Following the path should show one's relationship is ethical or not, and should be followed throughout the process. To wrap things up about multiple relationships, Gottlieb, 1993, uses this flow chart as a simplified manner of if a relationship should be monitored or terminated in a case of a multiple relationship is forming or it's causing issues in relation to power levels discussed previously.
One indicator of a multiple relationship forming is when a client oftentimes gives the professional a gift to express gratitude. But when does gift giving turn from a simple gesture to a coercive exchange?
A gift is something that is voluntarily transferred from one person to another without compensation. In addition to a gift having inherent monetary value, it can also be psychological or symbolic. Examples of gifts include gift cards, food, clothing, tickets, or any other tangible or financial item exchanged between the behavior analyst and the client. Specific situations of gift giving or gift receiving may differ across organizations when considering client culture, intention for giving the gift, and monetary limits, among others. Behavior analysts should consider ethical violations when it comes to giving or receiving gifts. However, the intention of gift giving, the professional judgment of the behavior analyst, and possibility of causing harm to the relationship when refusing gifts should be taken into account when determining whether a violation has occurred. One pro of gift giving is that behavior analysts have a responsibility to develop a multicultural competence and to practice in a culture-centered manner. Psychologists are urged to practice as culturally sensitive practitioners and remain attuned to the critical heritage of our clients by striving to incorporate understanding of clients and cultural background in the therapeutic milieu. Brown and Transgrud, 2008. Behavior analysts need to adapt their practices and interventions in order to maintain cultural competency. If a behavior analyst does not maintain this cultural competency, then they may be at risk for breaking ethics related to it, specifically Code 1.07, which explains evaluating biases and practicing within cultural responsiveness and diversity. Declining a gift may have detrimental effects on the therapeutic relationship, since refusing gifts may be offensive to the client or family and harmful to the relationship. One found that psychologists were more troubled by declining a personally engraved gift when considering the disappointment, inconvenience, or the loss of money that the client would endure, since they would be unable to return the gift. As behavior analysts, it's important to be mindful of practicing without offending and harming the therapeutic relationship. Though there might be some instances of gift giving that must be objectively denied, there may be a gray area in what is considered appropriate in the instance of gift giving. The acceptance of a client gift can be appropriate when the gift is an expression of gratitude and is presented at termination during the holiday season or when the client has conquered significant therapeutic challenges. Gift giving during holidays or special occasions is a common exchange between professionals and can be shown as appreciation by clients across many different work environments. Acts such as these for special occasions are temporary and may be more acceptable. It would be beneficial for behavior analysts to go through training of appropriate and inappropriate instances of gift receiving so they are all in a better position to respond appropriately. This concept training would further allow behavior analysts to determine instances in which gift receiving is inappropriate and how to deny the gift in a more culturally appropriate manner. In addition to receiving appropriate training, behavior analysts may also seek supervision with experienced colleagues to maintain objectivity and develop respectful therapeutic responses when a gift is deemed inappropriate. If an operational definition for gift giving is established, behavior analysts may have a clear understanding of what is more appropriate and what is not appropriate. Accepting small gifts can resemble friendship within a therapeutic relationship, which constitutes a dual relationship. Dual relationships are against the ethics codes for behavior analysts. Woods et al. 2020 state that gift giving may be considered an intimate contact with clients and family, which is likely to develop a multiple relationship. Gift giving may cross boundaries and risk multiple relationships when intimate contact is made with clients and their families. This would be at harm of breaking code 1.11, which explains the conflict of interest that could harm the therapeutic relationship when multiple relationships arise. A behavior analyst should be cautious not to cross boundaries with their clients and their clients' families. Rather than a behavior analyst conforming to the client's culture, it has been recommended that clients and stakeholders conform to the culture of the behavior analyst. This would shift the responsibility of cultural competency to the client's families. This may require a behavior analyst to communicate effectively and appropriately to the family to set clear boundaries on gift giving. In this practice, this would require a behavior analyst to practice the core principles of the ethics code, specifically code 1.01, which explains providing truthful and accurate information to clients and stakeholders. Receiving a gift may become a cue that increases the behavior analyst's awareness of power differences and can influence therapeutic decisions. For example, a behavior analyst may feel more inclined to show favoritism or reschedule a client since gift giving has occurred, as they may want to show the client appreciation for the gift or feel obligated to return this favor. Receiving gifts may serve as a powerful reinforcer for the client's gift-giving behavior. Accepting these gifts may pose a danger if the act of gift giving is reinforcing to the client, and as a result, the act is likely to recur. Freud suggested client gift giving as an expression of transference whereby the gift represents the client's attempt to win favor with the psychotherapist. Many gifts carry a low level of ethical concern and therapeutic meaning, but when considering a client's intentions or motives, they may have a deeper meaning. Though at first glance, a gift of low monetary value may raise a few ethical concerns, it wouldn't be a mistake to accept the gift without fully understanding the underlying motives, thoughts, and feelings of the client. Behavior analysts should keep in mind the possible symbols and metaphors created by the client when receiving gifts.
As mentioned through the pros and cons for gift giving and receiving, I will highlight some of these ethics codes. Ethics Code 112, titled Giving and Receiving Gifts, states that because the exchange of gifts can invite conflicts of interest and multiple relationships, behavior analysts do not give gifts to or accept gifts from clients, stakeholders, supervisees, or trainees with a monetary value of more than $10 US, or the equivalent purchasing power in another currency. Behavior analysts make clients and stakeholders aware of this requirement at the onset of the professional relationship. A gift is acceptable if it functions as an infrequent expression of gratitude and does not result in financial benefit to the recipient. Instances of gift giving or accepting ongoing or cumulative gifts may rise to the level of violation of this standard if the gifts become a regularly expected source of income or value to the recipient. This ethics code relates to the overlying responsibility to practice ethically when presented with an instance of gift giving. Within the ethics code, a monetary boundary is given, though it should be remembered that even with a low monetary value, some gifts may still be deemed inappropriate. However, it is within a behavior analyst's role to weigh these decisions while still adhering to the other ethics codes, such as cultural responsiveness and diversity. This ethics code specifically relating to cultural responsiveness and diversity, code 107, states that behavior analysts actively engage in professional development activities to acquire knowledge and skills related to cultural responsiveness and diversity. They evaluate their own biases and ability to address the needs of individuals with diverse needs and backgrounds. Behavior analysts also should evaluate biases of their supervisees and trainees, as well as their supervisees' ability to address the needs of individuals with diverse needs and backgrounds. This ethics code relates to what was discussed earlier regarding the responsibility to practice with cultural responsiveness when receiving gifts from clients and their families to avoid harming the therapeutic relationship. And lastly, ethics code 111, multiple relationships. A behavior analyst's willingness to take a gift from a client should not be taken lightly, and the behavior analyst should seriously consider the boundaries that may be crossed when accepting a gift. The last ethics code, 101, being truthful, states that the ethics codes should be considered when deciding not to take a gift and to fully explain to the client and their family the reason for declining the gift. Taking this step and following this ethics code of being truthful could prevent harm to the therapeutic relationship. So one study provided case scenarios with percentage of acceptance across participants and receivers of gifts. The first scenario states a 40-year-old Native American female client who you are seeing for issues concerning the death of her mother has made good progress with dealing with her grief while working with you. At the last session, she brings you a homemade necklace made of hemp and bone and tells you this is a gift that is given to those who help a tribe member through challenges. This is a special tribal honor, she informs you, that is bestowed to only a few people outside of her tribe. 38 out of 40 of participants indicated that they would accept the gift. Reasons for their acceptance were cultural respect or sensitivity, monetary value, and declining the gift has detrimental effects on the therapeutic relationship. The two that refused the gift explained that though it was a special honor, their code of ethics does not support accepting the gift. Cultural context and client information received the highest mean scores as factors influential in the participant's decision. The next scenario is a 37-year-old man, a Hispanic male client, arrives to his sixth counseling session with you. You are relatively certain that the sixth session is approximately the middle of your counseling treatment with this client. At the end of the session, he presents you with a small wooden figurine that his mother had given to him when he was young. He informs you that the figurine brought his ancestors good luck and has given him luck during tough times in the past. He tells you that the gift, which he now wants you to have, will bring you good luck in working with him. 30 participants indicated that they would not accept the gift. Reasons for this were due primarily to the sentimental value of the gift and the symbolic intent to invoke luck in the therapeutic relationship. 9 participants indicated that they would accept the gift, and reasons for this included therapeutic value, and 1 participant noted client appreciation. Client intention emerged as the most influential factor in the participants' decision.
This visual displays levels of monetary values of gifts and the number of participants that responded yes or no to accepting gifts for each other of these values. These values are no monetary value, small monetary value, moderate monetary value, and high monetary value. Included under each of these values are examples of specific types of gifts and the number of yeses and no responses for each. The number of no responses increase with the monetary value of gifts, and the yes responses are higher when the gifts have a smaller monetary value, but it decreases as the value increases. This visual displays reactions to accepting gifts. The two categorized reactions are one, for the clients I work with, it is offensive to refuse a gift. And two, accepting a gift from a client or the client's family will change my relationship with the client. If yes, why? For each reaction, participants responded yes if they agree or no if they disagree. Included under each yes or no are more detailed text responses to participants to explain their reasonings.
To wrap things up, professional boundaries in human services professionals are essential to protecting the interest of providers, clients, and organizations. Setting boundaries while collaborating with other professionals create a safe and effective work environment for everyone involved. Multiple relationships will help with building a strong relationship with stakeholders, but one should never take advantage of that relationship or avoid ethical decisions. Receiving gifts are a great way to build these relationships, but the same boundaries should be placed. One must understand the background of gifts before fully accepting that gift. And as a simple guideline, one should not accept gifts over $10, and boundaries should be made and clear of expectations. With all this information we gathered additional questions that may still be unanswered or to further discuss the topics we presented. The first question we were asked was, what are the BCBA's ethical responsibilities in regard to this topic? How do these impact practices?
So I can touch base on this one. So BCBA's ethical responsibilities in regards to gift giving, professional boundaries, and multiple relationships are to be aware of the consequences of accepting gifts over a certain dollar amount, as well as not crossing boundaries with their professional and therapeutic relationships. It would be really important to review the ethics code prior to practicing in an area of uncertainty. Also, to take the necessary steps to ensure clients' needs are being met while also practicing within the boundaries of the ethics code. So you always want to double check, like, am I able to accept this gift? So if you're ever unsure, definitely reach out to someone. Don't date your coworkers, and just keep those relationship boundaries within the scope of the client and like stakeholder relationship of the BCBA or the therapist.
That's a great point. And just to emphasize, the reading of the codes, understanding the codes, fully understanding the codes, and going back and rereading them again just to fully comprehend what each code is asking for and what you should follow. So that constant reflection of what the codes say. The second question we received is, do you have any personal experience related to this topic? And would you like to share? I have a quick example with gift giving. I received a gift from a child's mom when a child called me a name, as well as made some progress within his treatment goals and such like that. I first saw the handmade card from the kid and accepted it with gratitude and everything, saying thank you so much for this gift. What I did not realize is there was a $10 gift card within the handmade card. So the first thing I did is I went to the BCBA and I explained the situation. One of my biggest ethical dilemmas within that situation is, of all the RBTs on that kid's team, I was the only one to receive this gift. So it was a little weird receiving it, being the only one receiving it, and then having a monetary value to it. So I went to my supervisor right away, their BCBA involved with the case, and she said, ultimately, is this gift going to impact how you treat the kid or affect the treatment in any way? Obviously, I said no. It was just I was grateful for the gift. And also, how would that make the parent feel if we had to call the parent back, or the next day went up to the parent and made the situation awkward or just really inconvenient to say, hey, by the way, here's the $10 gift card back. I cannot accept it, sadly. And have to explain that situation. So ultimately, I accepted the gift. It was $10. It wasn't anything more, anything less. But first thing I did was contact my BCBA and the supervisor in charge. Does anybody else have any stories any personal experience they have?
I do have a experience with a supervisor. So while accruing my clinical hours for the BCBA exam, I had a supervisor ask me to get drinks and sleep over. And it was kind of put me in a difficult spot. I wasn't like, obviously I was going to say no, but it was kind of harder letting her down because obviously I appreciated her as my supervisor, but I can't cross that boundary with going to her house, having drinks and sleeping over, because at that point it turns into another relationship, whether it be friendship or at the time, whatever, she was kind of seeking. So definitely kind of awkward, but I had to stick to it and say like, no, thank you. And yeah, it was kind of awkward, I'll be honest, but if you're ever questioning situations like this, always try to reach out to your mentor or review the ethics code on your own, but always reach out if you're ever unsure. Does anyone?
Oh, sorry.
Didn't
Didn't mean to cut you off, Crystal. I've had an experience related to boundaries with providing supervision. As a supervision student, being in grad school at my company, we had the option of taking on a supervisor to help us obtain fieldwork hours. And with that position there came a lot more responsibility. And it got to the point where I felt like I was practicing outside of the scope of competence as a result of not receiving the necessary supervision and collaboration with the other professionals within the company that I was working in. I had been given a case manager role without the proper training to perform the professional duties that the position held. And I felt that if there had been better collaboration, those responsibilities that weighed so heavily on me could have been communicated about more effectively, and those responsibilities could have been referred to a professional that was competent in that area. So it was a pretty tough situation to be in because I didn't feel like it was only my responsibility to ensure that my role was being, I was doing the responsibilities that in a way that was benefiting the clients, and I really felt lost, and I was missing that communication and collaboration with others that should have also been more communicative with me as well. And that's all for me.
Thank you. And that is the end of our presentation.